I gained weight, my joints ached, I felt tired all the time, I suffered from brain fog, I had a lack of mental focus and clarity, and my sugar cravings went through the roof. I could not control them. No matter what I did, it felt like I couldn't quit eating sugar. If this sounds like you, then you need to watch today's video. In today's video, I'm going to talk about what sugar addiction did to me last year and how I quit eating sugar and how you can too. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, My Extraordinary Ordinary. My name is Danielle, and in today's very first Wellness Wednesday video, I'm going to talk about sugar addiction. I'm actually going to open up and share my personal story with you. I'm going to share how I became highly sugar addicted and what it did to me, and how I quit eating sugar and how you can too. I'm also going to talk a little bit about what to do if you've adopted a sugar-free lifestyle, it's going really well, your blood sugars are lower, you're feeling great, and you relapse. What do you do then? Because that actually happened to me as well. I'll share a little bit about that too. Please keep in mind as you watch today's video that I'll be sharing my personal story of how I became sugar addicted and what I did to solve my problem. By no means is this meant to be a comprehensive guide to everything you can possibly do or every solution that there is. This is just what I did. You also have to realize that every single one of us has a different level of insulin resistance, and our bodies will respond and react differently to different things that we do and different things we try. Keep in mind too that my story of becoming sugar addicted isn't really easy for me to tell, because as a personal trainer I definitely knew better, but it just goes to show how addictive sugar is, and I'm willing to tell it if it'll help even one person out there overcome or quit eating sugar, because it is so dangerous. So with that being said, let's jump into some why can't I say that word? Statistics that I want to share with you about sugar. First, the average American consumes 152 pounds of sugar every year, which equates to 22 teaspoons a day. American kids are eating even more sugar at 34 teaspoons a day. And furthermore, 70% of American adults and 40% of American children are overweight. So these statistics show that the sugar consumption in America is staggeringly high, although to me it's not shocking. I believe that the majority of our American population probably is pre-diabetic, if not full-blown type 2 diabetic, and they don't even realize it because of all the sugar we consume. So the commonly known damaging effects of sugar are that it causes tooth decay, we know that it causes weight gain, we know it's highly addictive, but something you may not realize is that sugar has actually been shown to be 8 times more addictive than cocaine. This is because sugar fits into the opioid receptors in our brain, causing a huge release of the chemical called dopamine in the pleasure centers of our brain, which signals to our bodies that it's pleasurable, that we like it, that we want more. But here's the problem with this, and this is why sugar is so highly addictive. We need to continue to eat more and more sugar to get the same dopamine release, because every time we eat it, our brain becomes more and more desensitized, requiring us to have more and more to get the same sensation of pleasure that we got before. And this is one of the things that makes sugar so dangerous for us. Sugar is actually a psychotropic drug that can change your mental state. So if we know all this about sugar and we know how bad it is for us, then why do we eat so much of it? Well, think about it. It's readily available, it's relatively inexpensive, and it's built into our modern day culture as something we do to celebrate good times or holidays. Think about birthdays. What do we have? Birthday cake. At Christmas, we bake Christmas cookies. At Easter, we give our kids Easter baskets full of candy. At Halloween, our kids go trick-or-treating and they come back with big bags of candy that the whole family usually eats. It's not just the kids, because I know you parents eat it too. At least I know I did when my kids were little. A lot of parents might reward their kids with something that's sugar-based, like a candy bar or a sweet treat if they get good grades or they clean their room or they do something good. So sugar in our culture has become this thing that we've used to associate with a lot of positive and happy events as well as holidays. Think about when someone has a wedding shower or a baby shower or any kind of party or special event. When was the last time that you went to a party or a special event and there wasn't some form of sugar in the form of a dessert or other things readily available for everybody to eat? It's commonplace, it's something we do in our culture, and not only is it socially acceptable, it's almost socially expected. It's expected that when you go out, you're going to get a bread basket at dinner, you're going to eat the bread, you're going to potentially have dessert. When you go to a party, there's going to be dessert, there's going to be cake or donuts or other desserts that you'll eat, and you want to do that because you associate eating that dessert with that happy time, but we have to break that habit. My mom was a registered nurse when I was growing up, and she was really health conscious before it ever became really popular to be health conscious. And we never had sugary snacks, sugary cereals, we never had soda, we never really even had juice. If it was a holiday like Christmas or Easter, maybe she'd buy orange juice once in a while, but it wasn't something we had regularly. It was very rare that you would find our pantry with things like chips or any sort of processed foods like that. Once in a while she'd bake, and so we'd have that, but she didn't buy these types of processed foods. She didn't buy really sugary foods. In fact, she was really strict about sugar. She didn't want us to eat it. And what this did to me, unfortunately, was it really developed this curiosity in me about sugar. And there were a lot of things about my childhood that I didn't like, that made me really unhappy. I was really bullied as a kid because I'm disabled. And so sugar for me became a source of comfort, and I didn't understand at that time as a kid that I was really seeking that dopamine hit in my brain by eating sugar. But I remember sneaking candy whenever I could. When we sold those candy bars in grade school, if you did that where you sold those fundraiser candy bars, I remember a time when my dad and I ate like a whole box in one sitting by ourselves. And then after that, my mom banned me from ever selling those fundraiser candy bars again. But it set me on a path to really crave sugar, and like I said, I didn't understand what was happening in my brain at the time, but it was a very quick and easy way to make myself feel better. And I think that a lot of us will use sugar to self-soothe when we're tired, when we're stressed, when we're upset, when we're angry, and we really need to do a reset on our body and brain to stop doing that. Another key point I want to make here, if you're watching this video and you're thinking, I'm probably not sugar addicted because I don't even like sweet things, I don't have a sweet tooth, I don't eat a lot of candy. I love my salty things. I love my chips, I love my crackers, I love my pretzels, my breads, my pastas. Keep in mind, after you eat those types of processed carbs, your body will break those down into glucose or sugar, and when that hits your bloodstream, it will cause your blood sugar to rise. So I've worked with a lot of clients that don't think they have a sugar addiction because they're not eating sweet things, but then they come to realize that eating all these processed carbs essentially is a sugar addiction, because it's what your body does with the food after you eat it and how your blood sugar responds. And another mistake that I see people make is they try to transition from sugar, things that taste sweet, to these highly processed carbs, and they think that it's better because it doesn't taste sugary. But we need to remember that highly processed carbs are basically sugar, and that's what they're being converted to in the body after we eat them. So we need to keep that in mind when we're thinking in terms of sugar addiction. So let's switch gears and get back into my personal story a little bit. I believe I became very sugar addicted in my childhood, and that's when I developed these cravings for sugar and for sweet things, and that never really went away. When I was newly married, I unfortunately experienced a miscarriage, but the one good thing that came out of that for me was I really researched the body. I wanted to understand more about pregnancy, and I wanted to understand about what I should be doing in pregnancy, and that really set me on a path to develop a much healthier diet and a healthier lifestyle. And a year before I became pregnant again, I ate a completely sugar-free and chemical-free and preservative-free diet. I didn't have any caffeine. I was very health conscious, and I went on to have another child. And during this time, I was breastfeeding. I was very conscious about what I was eating. I didn't eat any sugar, and my kids didn't have any sugar until they were probably in grade school. I was very particular about what they ate when they were really young. I didn't want them having sugar, and I was very careful with my diet. And then after having my kids, that's when I started to exercise more, and I became more interested in health and fitness from the fitness standpoint. But I started noticing after I had my kids that my body was changing. I couldn't eat whatever I wanted and stay super skinny anymore. I really had to watch what I was eating if I wanted to maintain my weight and my health. And so that kind of became my mission after I had my kids. And then I became a certified personal trainer, and that became a whole new mission for me. I really wanted to embark on this journey of helping other people get healthy. And at that time, I was really involved in running races and doing duathlons and things like that. So my diet was still really important to me, and it stayed that way for over a decade. So let's fast forward to today. How did I go from living a super health conscious lifestyle and diet and feeding my kids a super health conscious diet to becoming sugar addicted. In my last video I did on how to reach your goals faster in 2024, I talked about how I suffered with a lot of health challenges last year. And unfortunately for me, those health challenges led me into developing a sugar addiction. And this is the challenging thing when you suffer from sugar cravings or you have a sugar addiction. There's some debate about whether we should call it cravings or addiction, about whether you really can be sugar addicted. Everyone is different, but I can tell you for me, I definitely feel like I am sugar addicted, and I will be probably for the rest of my life. That's something that you have to discern for yourself. But the hard thing about it is once you're in that cycle, it is a very destructive cycle, and it's very hard to break free. So I had all these health challenges and I was trying to figure out what was wrong. I was seeing all these specialists, going to all these doctors, and I had a lot of dental issues that I dealt with last year as well. I had a ton of cavities and I really was so exhausted. I was so tired. I thought maybe I had chronic fatigue syndrome. As it turned out, I was diagnosed with asthma, so that was something that was probably making me tired. But as I became more and more fatigued, it caused me to start doing things I never would have done before. Never before would I have gone to the grocery store and bought a candy bar. I just didn't eat like that. I didn't do it. I think they're overpriced. I know they're full of chemicals besides just the multiple different kinds of sugar they have. It's just never something I would have done. But one day I was so desperate and so tired, I just did it. And that kind of opened a door for me to just keep doing it more and more, and on a bigger and bigger scale. And some videos on sugar addiction that you might watch, they'll go through the different various signs of addiction. If you're hiding it, if you're doing it in secret, if you're lying about it. Well, yeah, I was doing all of those types of things. It got to a point where I had a basket in my bedroom that I would keep my candy stash. And my family would kind of tease me about it, but they didn't know how bad it was. I had candy in my car. I had candy in my bedroom. I always kept some candy in my purse. It really blossomed into this horrible thing. I felt like a prisoner, and I felt like the more sugar I ate, the more I needed to give me that energy boost, to make me feel better, to make me feel good. And I'll tell you that while I was eating it, it was enjoyable. I liked the taste, but I always hated how I felt afterwards. And for me, it was an equal combination of the sweet sugary foods along with the processed carbohydrates, the chips, the crackers, the pastas, the breads that I ate all together in conjunction because I just wanted to feel better. I wanted to give myself that dopamine hit. I needed to get more energy. And for me, it just became what felt like an impossible cycle. Work became really hard for me. I'd go and teach one cycle class for 45 minutes and I'd have to come home and go right to bed. That's how tired it would make me. I couldn't stand up and train more than 2 clients at a time without feeling like I had to lay down and go to sleep. It was that bad. It was really bad. I remember one day I had a horrible headache and I instinctively knew that if I just ate some sugar, it would go away and I would feel better. And I looked all around in our pantry, in our freezer, in our refrigerator. I couldn't find anything. Couldn't find any cookies, couldn't find any ice cream, couldn't find anything that I could eat to give myself that sugar boost to make myself feel better and make my headache go away. And I actually considered eating a tablespoon of sugar right out of the sugar bag because I knew if I did that, it would make my headache go away. And that was when I really felt like I hit rock bottom with my sugar addiction. I didn't eat the sugar out of the sugar bag, but I realized I had a severe problem and I really had to do something about it. I should mention at this point that my weight had ballooned to a higher weight than I was when I was pregnant with both my boys, which was an all-time low for me. So I was heavier set than I had ever been in my life. I was the lowest energy I had ever been in my life, and I knew I desperately had to make a change. And I started praying about it in earnest, and God must have known that I was really ready to change my behavior. And I found this doctor on YouTube. Her name is Mindy Pelz. I'll link her channel below, but her channel is a great resource if you want to learn about fasting or other health related things, especially for women. And because I really wanted to lose weight, I started to fast again, but I found out really quick it's almost impossible to fast if your diet is filled with sugar. It's really hard to do. There's a lot of videos out there that talk about sugar cravings or sugar addiction, and they'll give you signs that you're sugar addicted or signs that you have sugar cravings. I'll tell you what, just buy the blood glucose monitor and you can see exactly where you're at. That is the surest way to know. So I went on Amazon and bought a blood glucose monitor. It wasn't very expensive. In fact, I just looked up the one that I bought and it's like $22, and I think they're even offering a coupon on it right now. I will link it below in the description box. But I did that because I believe it's really important to reach your goals that you have to know where you're starting from. And I'm a visual person. I want to see progress as I go along. There's a lot of videos that talk about sugar addiction or sugar cravings, and they might ask you questions to determine whether you're sugar addicted or you're not. But one cut and dried way to know is to just order the blood glucose monitor and test your sugars. Everybody's different, and our body chemistry, our metabolism, and the way our body reacts is different. So the only way that you can be 100% sure is by testing your own sugars. By this point, I knew my sugar consumption was out of control. I knew it was bad. I was hiding it. I was lying about it. I felt very ashamed of it because I knew as a fitness professional I shouldn't be eating this way. But when I tested my sugars, I was shocked. I was at 125. I was pre-diabetic. I was 1 point away from being a type 2 diabetic because of how much sugar I was eating. And in that moment, when I saw that reading, everything changed for me. I watched a lot of videos on sugar addiction and beating sugar cravings, and nobody mentioned using a blood glucose monitor. And I'm really shocked that I didn't hear this, because to me, it's the surefire way that you can know exactly where you're starting from and exactly where your sugars are right now, and that you can see progress within yourself as you move along towards a sugar-free lifestyle. So if you're still with me, I'm so glad you are. And if you're wondering when I'm going to tell you exactly what you have to do to quit sugar for good, I'm going to tell you right now. But if you're not subscribed, why aren't you? If you like wellness content like this, take a minute and hit that subscribe button down below. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you never miss when I share a future video. Okay, so here are the steps that I took to quit sugar, and I'll tell you that it didn't take me that long. The first thing I did was to recognize that I had a serious problem. And I not only recognized that I had a serious problem, I told my loved ones about it. I told people I trusted because I needed to be held accountable. The second thing I did is obvious, but it's important. I got rid of all the sugar and all the carbs I didn't want to be eating. I just completely threw everything away. I didn't want it in my home. The third thing I did was focus on eating more protein and healthy fats. This is really important because when you're full and you're satiated, it turns off your hunger hormone, ghrelin, and oftentimes when we're hungry, that's when our cravings will kick in and we'll crave sugar and carbs. But as long as we can stay full and satiated, then we don't have to deal with nearly so many cravings. And when I say healthy fats, I'm talking about avocados, I'm talking about avocado oil, olive oil, MCT oil. All of those things are examples of healthy fats. The fourth thing you want to make sure you do is you want to get good quality sleep. You want to make sure you're getting enough sleep, because if you don't get enough sleep and you're overtired, that's when the hunger hormone ghrelin kicks in and we get all those nasty cravings that we don't want. And cravings make it really hard to quit sugar. So we want to minimize those cravings as much as possible, and getting really good quality sleep is one of the ways that we do that. Now the fifth thing you want to do is you really want to monitor your stress. You really want to keep your stress level as low as you possibly can. Now again, I realize that we all have different lifestyles, we live different lives. Some of us can do this more easily than others. Some of us have things in our lives that we can control stress-wise, and some of us have things in our life that we absolutely can't. But you want to do your best to try and monitor your stress. If nothing else, looking at your situation from a different perspective, trying to be as positive as you possibly can will help you lower your stress level. I've done a lot of videos on my channel on this topic, and I'll link some of those in the description box if you do want to check those out. And this is really important because stress raises cortisol, which can cause those nasty cravings. So we really want to keep our stress as low as we possibly can. Now one thing I had to learn along the way, which was really important to me quitting sugar, was understanding and learning the names that sugar goes by. A lot of times when you read a label, it won't say just sugar. And if it does, it's probably a better product for you than if it contains a lot of different names that sugar often goes by. But sugar comes in many different manufactured man-made forms, and you really need to understand what these are. I've listed some of them on the screen. This is by no means an exhaustive list. One thing you also have to remember about reading labels is that by law, companies are required to put the highest ingredients first on the label, and as you go down the label, the level of ingredient decreases. So oftentimes what they might do is they might put several different types of sugar in a product spaced throughout the label so it doesn't look like the product is simply a sugar bomb, when in actuality that's what it is. So really learn how to read your labels. Nowadays, if you're at the store and you're not sure what something is, you can always Google it and find out. But an easier, simpler route would probably be just to adopt my policy: when in doubt, go without. Don't have it. You don't need it. Another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about quitting sugar is you need to be mindful of what you're drinking. A lot of people drink a ton of sugar and they don't even realize it. For decades, I drank my coffee with flavored creamer, and it was probably 3 or 4 tablespoons of it every time I drank a cup of coffee. And I never stopped at just 8 ounces of coffee. I usually had at least 32 ounces of coffee, so I was probably putting almost a good half cup of creamer in my coffee. That is a ton of sugar. I no longer do that, but I did, like I said, for decades. I think a lot of people consume the sugar they eat in liquid form and they don't even realize what they're doing. And this is so bad because when we drink something, it's absorbed into the body that much faster, and that means it can spike our blood sugar that much faster as well. So we really need to be aware of what we're drinking. A lot of people mistakenly drink things that they think are healthy when they're actually nothing more than sugar bombs. Orange juice is a great example of this. I once had a client that would drink a carton of orange juice a day, an entire carton a day, and she started gaining a ton of weight and she couldn't understand why. And actually I couldn't understand why either. She was telling me what she was eating and everything she was eating was good. I didn't understand where this weight gain was coming from, and I finally said, "What are you drinking?" Because I knew she didn't drink soda and she wasn't really an alcohol drinker either, so I'm like, I don't understand what it could be. And then that's when she told me she was drinking a carton of orange juice a day, and that's when I realized where her problem lied. Orange juice is nothing but a pure sugar bomb. Same thing goes for smoothies. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they think they're being really healthy when they tell me that they drink a big smoothie every day for breakfast, when in actuality they're just starting their day with nothing more than a sugar bomb. Because when we take something like a fruit in its whole form and we juice it down, we're concentrating that sugar. A lot of people think that drinking diet soda is better for you than drinking regular soda because it's diet. A lot of diet products will actually stimulate the hunger hormone ghrelin, which will cause you to actually eat more, which in turn will cause you to gain weight. NutraSweet is a really bad sweetener. It's not good for you at all. It's one of the worst. You can go do your due diligence on it and do your research on it. I'm not going to get into it in this video, but a lot of artificial sweeteners are really, really bad for you, and people mistakenly think that if their drinks are sweetened with artificial sweeteners, then they're fine because it isn't sugar. But one thing we don't realize is that artificial sweeteners can be over 300 times more sweet than actual table sugar. When we eat or drink products that have a whole bunch of artificial sweeteners in them, then what happens to our bodies is instead of getting a normal dopamine release, like we would get if we'd eat a naturally sweet apple, we get this mega dopamine release because our body is sensing this overly sweet thing hit our brain, triggering that dopamine release. So it's important to be aware of what you're drinking, read your labels, and know that just because something says it's a health food doesn't mean it's actually healthy for you. It's also important to educate yourself on what some commonly used high sugar foods are. Some things that we might not even think about are ketchup, barbecue sauce, salad dressing, sports drinks. I already covered juice, but even the no sugar added juices still have quite a bit of sugar if you really look at the label. Granola, canned fruit, and smoothies I already talked about. Protein bars are a big one. Some of them even contain as much sugar as a regular candy bar, so make sure that you read your labels carefully and you know what it is you're eating. Now, I implemented the steps I already shared as I was learning about sugar in its many different forms, but I had not started to change my diet yet to cut out sugar. I think it's important to implement these steps first and learn a little bit more about what you're eating and learn how to read labels. Now, there's a lot of different schools of thought on how to quit sugar. My advice and what I did was I just went cold turkey. I didn't taper off. I didn't want to take 30 days or longer. I wanted to just quit, and I wanted to see my results as fast as possible. Now, I will say with that approach, there will be some pain, there will be some discomfort. How much pain and discomfort you'll have will depend on how sugar addicted you are. It will depend on how insulin resistant your body is. I was very insulin resistant. My diet had been really, really bad for a little bit over a year. So when I did it, it was really uncomfortable for me, but I knew it was going to be going in, so I was prepared. I strategically chose to quit sugar during a time when I had plenty of time to rest, when I had plenty of time to relax, when my stress level wasn't very high, and when I knew I could get plenty of good sleep. I wanted to make sure that I could make the transition as easy as possible, and I also wanted to make sure as I was going through this transition that I could deal with the onset of my symptoms as they came, that I wasn't stuck in a long meeting at work or I wasn't stuck in front of a client client. So I would really encourage you, when you decide to quit sugar, to just decide. Don't tell yourself you're going to try. Tell yourself you're going to do it. Tell your friends and family you're doing it so they don't encourage you to eat things that you don't want to eat. And then once you make that decision, you set aside a time when you can start, when you're not real busy, when your stress level isn't really high. My suggestion, if you work a typical 9 to 5 type of job, is to maybe start on like a Thursday or maybe a Friday, so that as you're going into the weekend when you might get more uncomfortable and experience more symptoms, you can deal with those symptoms at home, your stress level is low, and you're not having to do that while you're at work. I found that by doing these 5 steps and then setting a time when I was going to quit sugar and just going cold turkey, it really didn't take me too long. It probably took me about 4 or 5 days of completely not having any sugar to stop having intense sugar cravings. And then I experienced some uncomfortable side effects for probably about 3 or 4 days, and that was pretty severe headaches, feeling really tired, those kinds of things. But I was at home, I was able to deal with them. I slept a lot, and I really put myself in a place where I could take care of myself as I was experiencing unpleasant symptoms. And I highly recommend that if you can, to do that, because it's going to make the experience so much better, and I think it's going to make your experience of quitting sugar a lot faster. I don't really believe that it has to take 30 days or longer. I think you can do it pretty quick if you put your mind to it. The key is to just follow those steps that I mentioned, and also to engage in self-care as you're actively quitting sugar, knowing that you're going to have some unpleasant symptoms possibly, and being able to deal with those as they come. The last thing I want to touch on is what to do if you relapse. I mentioned that this happened to me, so I was in a really good place. My sugar cravings had completely stopped. I wasn't eating sugar anymore, and I had started to implement fasting. And through that experience of implementing fasting and not eating sugar, I lost 16 pounds in about 2 months, and that was without exercise, because at the time I was dealing with a sprained ankle and I had some other health conditions, and I couldn't actively exercise. So that was just cutting out sugar, starting to fast. And I really had some great weight loss results, and I was feeling really great. But the height of me feeling my best happened in early November. So it happened right before Thanksgiving. So I will tell you that the holidays really derailed me. I fell off the wagon, and because we made each other gifts this year, my son baked everybody tins of Christmas cookies, I baked cookies. You know how the holidays are. I don't have to explain it. You know. I ended up eating a ton of sugar, and I fell into that cycle. The more I ate, the more I craved. I started to gain a little bit of the weight back, even though by now I was actively exercising. And by this time, I had started to tell my clients about fasting and being sugar-free, and they were starting to see results. And I can tell you that after the holidays, it was so hard for me to get back on track. And we're at the end of February now, and I'm just now starting to embrace the sugar-free lifestyle again. It took me that long. So everybody's different. If you fall off the wagon, if you relapse, if you start eating sugar again for whatever reason, just stop eating sugar as soon as you can and follow those same 5 steps I mentioned earlier in the video again. And you'll find that you'll be able to get back on track again, probably quicker this time and probably with less discomfort than you did the first time. I learned a lesson. I know that next year during the holidays, they will be a lot different for me than they were this year. This is what showed me that I am a person, unfortunately, that is truly sugar addicted. There are some things that I'll allow myself to eat when I want a sweet treat. Berries are one of those things, and berries have a lot of great antioxidants and vitamins that are really good for you, so I do eat berries. And I will have Halo Top or keto ice cream bars if I'm really craving ice cream. I love macadamia nuts, and one of my favorite snacks is making organic popcorn on the stovetop with avocado oil with a little bit of sea salt on top. So those are my go-to snacks that I eat now, but my own journey has taught me quite a lot, and I hope it's been helpful to you too. The biggest thing to remember is that none of us are perfect. If you slip up and you eat sugar, then you can stop and start over again. Give yourself a measure of grace. Love yourself. One of the things that Dr. Mindy Pelz always says that I love is she always says your body is a miracle, and that is true. Your body is a miracle, and it wants to be healthy. And I know that if I can quit sugar as sugar addicted as I was, then you can too. I believe in you. I know you can do it. Let me know in the comments below if you've used any strategies that have helped you quit sugar, or if you're going to implement any of the tips that I talked about in today's video. I'm so glad we got to spend some time together today. I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new, and remember to make your everyday ordinary life extraordinary.
Bye, Mom, when you're editing. I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
Bye, Mom.